We're really excited about the website. The reason we're so excited about it, to be honest with you, Paul, is because we do see it as a wonderful clearinghouse for persons with disabilities and people who care about including people in their community. I know that we're going to have a lot of information on resources and health news, much like the health news we're going to be doing on the show. You're going to provide lots of contact information because I know there's numerous ways of getting a hold of us, both by phone, online, of course, at inclusionrevolution.com, at our toll-free number, which I know to be 1-866-429-5878. Don't call the 800 number. You're not going to like it. They're going to charge you. So be sure to call the 866-429-5878 anywhere in Canada. And, of course, also able to find us through archived shows on VoicePrint and, of course, live here at Eastlink Cable in Halifax.
Yes. Another way to reach us is through the secondary audio programming through CBC News World. And the way this works is on your TV remote or on your cable remote, there is a button that usually says SAP. And if you hit that SAP button, which is secondary audio programming, it will take you to a section which you choose as in a drop-down menu that says Audio Select. You change the audio select to SAP, you exit the menu, and what you'll be seeing is CBC News World, but what you'll be listening to will be us.
That's fantastic, and that's Eastern Time, 6:30 on Thursdays.
Correct.
So if it's not 6:30 on Thursday, you're listening to us on archive. How about that?
Yes. The archives will be also connected to VoicePrint, and we will have an archive section on inclusionrevolution.com.
We'll always be able to let you listen to us because we love to be listened to. So we're trying to give you as many ways as possible, both to contact us, but also to listen to us and to share this show with people that maybe aren't going to be available at 6:30 Eastern Time on Thursdays, but definitely you want to hear this show and join in on the Inclusion Revolution discussion. In addition, what I like about the website is the online poll that we're going to provide every week, and that poll is going to be on a very recent subject or issue that we think is relevant to persons with disabilities across this country. And I know that this week's poll is really interesting because it involves a Quebec woman who was flying, I believe. And Paul, why don't I go over to you and get you to tell us a little bit about that story, and then we'll talk about what the poll question is going to be this week.
Tova, a summary of the article is that a Quebec woman with a disability wants her travel companion to fly for free. Natalie Simon, 25, has a genetic brittle bone disease and must be accompanied by an assistant when she flies because she needs assistance to settle into her seat and travel comfortably. Basically, the airlines, Air Canada and WestJet, have appealed a decision by the Supreme Court of Canada that ruled that the airlines must provide two seats for anybody with a disability or anybody who is disabled. So, do you agree? Do you agree? Should the airlines provide two seats or should they not be forced to provide two seats? That is our poll question for the week. Please go to inclusionrevolution.com and let us know what you think, and we will post the results next week.
I'm not going to give my view on the poll question until after the results come in. That's my promise to Paul, so I'm going to keep it. That said, Paul, I think that the idea of having a poll every week and giving people opportunities to get questions forward, we don't have to design the poll. I just want to let the listeners know they can also send us questions and articles that they feel would be relevant for the poll. So, Paul, I've talked enough about polls, plus I never liked that word, so we're going to move on if that's all right with you. And I know that you had a couple of questions you asked me to hold out a little time for today because you thought they were really important, so why don't we go there if that's all right with you?
Sure. One of the questions I had, Tova, was where can someone like myself start looking for support, can start looking for information? I always find, I'm 15 degrees of separation away from who or what I need, and it's a minefield of information.
I think that's probably the case for many people. You're certainly not alone, so I'm glad you asked that question, Paul. And I think one of the things that we have to remind everybody is you've got to be your own self-advocate. Now, one of the first places I tend to tell people to go who are looking for a starting point is obviously a community organization that might focus on their type of disability or need. But if not, I'm going to send people to reachability.org, and that's REACHABILITY, just like it sounds, reachability.org. And Reachability is an organization that has an incredible links page in particular on their website. And that's why I tend to send people there, because you can start to see what resources are out there, and they might actually trigger your needs without even realizing that was one of your needs, and maybe take some of those degrees of separation out, because 15 is really frustrating. And the truth be told, Paul, most people with disabilities are pretty frustrated when they start trying to look for the right resource, and they get a lot of passed around, and it can be very frustrating. And that's why I like to talk about self-advocacy, because a self-advocate is simply somebody somebody who stands up for themselves, gets what they need, doesn't give up, although many of us feel discouraged, and so on. But I don't want to get too far into self-advocacy because I know that's Dr. Mill's area, and he is coming to visit us next week. So what I will say, though, is self-advocacy is inextricably connected to self-confidence. We have to believe in our own right to receive these things. And I think one of the saddest parts of stigma in our community is that people with disabilities themselves often buy into the belief that they don't deserve or they shouldn't bother or can't because no one's going to listen. And that's a really sad fact. And that's why I'm so committed to the concept of self-advocacy and its tie into self-confidence, because I believe we've got to act on our own behalfs. And frankly, I'm a person who believes in a squeaky wheel. And for those of you who don't know what that means, a little bit of noise can be a good thing. But I also believe we have to baste it in honey. As you can see, I'm doing food again because I'm a big food person. But the truth is, our squeaky wheel does have to be basted in honey. And what I mean by that is sometimes we have to go in there, but we have to go in there without all that aggression and frustration that those 15 degrees may have taken us to. And take a deep breath and come in with the confidence and the awareness that with a little bit of noise and a lot of honey, we can get a lot done. And I don't see any reason we shouldn't have to. And that's just like everybody else. I don't think disability owns that frustration,
Right.
Especially when you're at the motor vehicles or
Right.
or a bank that's got a long lineup.
Right. That's great information. There's another word that I've heard recently that I'm not familiar with, and that's handy-capitalism.
Well, it's not actually a new word. It's a word that came out of the Wall Street Journal in the late 90s. But what it really talks about, and it's something you've heard me talk about, Paul, because I'm very committed to the idea. Handy-capitalism, if we can say it, we can tell you about it, is a term that describes what's behind the realization in business. And that realization is that people with disabilities should not be viewed as charity cases or regulatory burdens, as I've often heard, but rather as a profitable marketing targets. Mainstream companies are really coming to terms with the fact that it's not just what's mandated by law, but they're really starting to tailor their products to attract persons with disabilities. And I think that's a really important message. This is not about charity when employer is inclusive of persons with disabilities. It's actually good business sense. And I always tell employers there's 6 good reasons to include diversity in their hiring strategies. I like numbers. I'm big on numbers. So my 6 reasons are competitive advantage. Makes perfect sense because why not show the rest of the community and persons with disabilities out there and their family and their supporters that you are an inclusive employer? It will make people actually more prone to coming to your establishment. Diverse perspectives. Clearly, people with disabilities are often outside the box thinkers. I know that term flies around a lot, but it really means something to me. Diverse perspectives bring diverse ideas, and that's how we create success. The old adage of everyone thinking alike, coming from the same background, it's been proven to be not successful in business. We require diversity. And that's one of my reasons why I always tell employers that it's a plus to hire, not a minus. And additionally, I talk a lot about public image because it is important to represent your community if you are a community member, as so many establishments like to provide that message to the community, how they're part of the community. And one of the ways you do that successfully is through creating a public image that shows that you are a hirer, employer, and that your customer base is persons with disabilities. I encourage a larger resource pool. I talk about the fact that it encourages universal access, which we touched on earlier, I know. And finally, it's about being prepared for the future. And isn't that what Inclusion Revolution is all about? And I think that's all the time we've got today, Paul.
That is all the time we have today.
Well, I have to tell you, it's been an exciting first show. We're really looking forward to having more people join us. Join us through our website, inclusionrevolution.com. Join us on our weekly show, both on VoicePrint. Find us in the VoicePrint archive. And you can do all of that through inclusionrevolution.com. So come visit us. And what was that you said earlier that I love so much about talking about tomorrow, Paul? So I think that might be my new sign-off.
I think it was... we need to start thinking about tomorrow today.
We need to start talking about tomorrow today. And that's going to be my sign-off for today. We need to start talking about tomorrow today. Have a wonderful evening from Inclusion Revolution. We bless you.
Good night.
Negativity.